conference room over here at our virtual set, and I've got a guest today to talk with us a little bit about the A in AV, and that's audio, joined today by Rebecca Sullins. Rebecca, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ben. I really appreciate it.
Well, absolutely. Rebecca, I want to ask, right, audio is, ironically enough, kind of one of the ways that a lot of people find their way to the industry for the first time, especially historically, right? Whether that's people who are mixing, musicians, things like that. So audio literally is half of the AV industry. Specifically, excited to have you on and talk a little bit about it.
Thank you. It's definitely the less flashy side of the AV. You know, we don't make pretty bright lights and everything, but it is vitally important.
Well, the beautiful thing about audio is that it's science, right? There are certain things and laws of physics that cannot be changed over time in theory. What are some of those things that you find that people that kind of come into the industry, whether it's the first time or maybe come from a technical background, that maybe they need to know about the world of audio?
Okay, so my biggest thing with audio, acoustics, physics, physiology, all of that, is that there's no piece of hardware in the world that will overcome just really bad architecture or design or acoustics. There's only so much you can do to overcome that. So understanding the basics of how audio reacts with the environment. So we've got a graphic up here. Now, hold on, this one's a little bit hard to see, but basically what this is showing you is acoustics in and of itself is nothing more than the way that a wave reacts with its environment, whether that is reflected, absorbed, diffracted, whatever. So this graphic is kind of showing you this is what is happening. This is what is hitting a listener's ear in a badly designed acoustical room. They are getting that sound from multiple different locations at multiple different time signatures, and it really, really, really screws with the way you hear things in your environment. So understanding acoustics at a fundamental level and how the human physiology responds to said acoustics, I believe is truly fundamental to understanding how to design an accurate AV system.
Well, you talk a lot about kind of the refraction side of things. Naturally, when you start talking about acoustics in all sorts of different environments, you start talking about things like verb and bounce back and delay. You know, talk a little bit about some of those, I don't know that I would say audio effects, but maybe those secondary features of audio.
Okay, so the three big ones that we tend to be concerned with, especially in the AV world, are absorption, reflection, and refraction. Now, reflection is what we know as reverb, okay? And that is obviously, see, there we go. Reverb is good when you want to sort of blend your sound and make it softer for vocals, etc., because it can hide a lot of vocal mistakes. That's why, you know, all the really bad pop singers put a lot of reverb on their songs. It hides mistakes, right? It's kind of like whitewashing over a painting. You miss the brushstrokes. However, when you're talking about intelligibility, and this is something that is near and dear to my heart. I actually am teaching a class tomorrow about intelligibility and how to design for this exact problem. When you look at intelligibility, and we're going to look at this graphic here, the on the left is your clean sound with no absorption. So you can clearly see the highs and the lows. There's peaks and valleys. It's much more clear. The one on the right is what happens if you have a very badly designed room and you have sound bouncing all over the place. It raises your entire noise floor, right? It's the same reason it's so much harder to talk to your buddies at a club or in an airport. When that noise floor is really high, nothing pops over it, right? You need contrast. Same thing in video. You want high contrast ratio, right? This is the concept of contrast ratio for audio.
Well, look, when you start talking about audio, I think a lot of times, especially people here, may think about the larger room, the house of worship, the entertainment venue, things like that. But all of this science translates even to macro, small meeting rooms, offices, things like that, which is why it's very difficult to get a good sound out of a room with glass and highly reflective surfaces. How do you take those high concept principles and boil them down maybe to those smaller venues and things like conference rooms?
Well, it's funny because actually I think they're more important in smaller rooms, right? Because smaller rooms, they're not going to have a voice lift system to get over some of these issues that you have. So it is more important for them to be simply designed better, which is not always the case, as we have seen in the emerging trend of open ceilings and minimalist and square walls and etc. So for me, it's you have a budget, right, when it comes to audio. You can have so much noise floor, you can have so much lift, etc. You have to balance that budget. If your room does not sound very good, then you need to get the mics right up next to the people. If the room sounds great, then you've got a little bit of leeway in that budget to be more free with your design. So for me, it's all about just understanding what your variables are. And in those small rooms, a lot of times, you don't have a whole lot to play with, but it is much more vitally important that things be intelligible.
Well, Rebecca, obviously people here at the show this week have the benefit of going to things like demo rooms and seeing a lot of these in practice. But let's talk about some of those folks who may not be here. Where are some of the places that people can go to learn maybe just a little bit more about the basics of audio?
Oh, basics of audio. SynodCon always has excellent courses. They're my immediate go-to. They are the kings and queens of acoustics and audio. Let's see. SynodCon is good. NTI has a whole bunch of acoustic classes online that you can do. But for me, you can learn the fundamentals of it. You can learn how to do the math. You can learn the concepts. But until you actually go and start to listen to things and really pay attention. For example, in college, I did a course called Golden Ears, where it was literally you would listen to one sound and then you would listen to one sound with so much distortion on it so that you could actually hear the differences. And being able to actually experience acoustical differences is key.
Well, Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us today out on the virtual set. I'm sure we'll see you a few more times out around on the show floor.
You will.
And for those of you watching on Avixa TV, we talk about audio not only in the macro standpoint at a venue, but even in things like headphones. We'll talk a little bit about that in our next video, which is about the HyperX Arena.